Well, peer review, an absolutely, it's integral to the writing classroom as I see it. Writing is inherently social, as one of the core concepts indicates. And that means that students work together on their writing in a variety of ways. But I make a distinction between peer review. I call it peer response, really. I don't like the term review, and I make a distinction between that and what many people refer to as peer editing. And the reason that I make that distinction is because I don't see peer response as inherently evaluative. The students are not saying this is good or not. They're certainly not correcting each other's essays, and many of them come into my class thinking that's what working together is. That's what it means to be in a peer response group. To my mind, peer response is about a small community of writers working together to help each other solve the rhetorical problems for that writing task. And so their job is to read one another's essays and respond to it as readers. Not to say your introduction is good, or you made a mistake in paragraph 3, or it's disorganized, but to say, here's my reaction to your text. I agree with this, or this was really interesting, or I didn't know this, I have further questions about that. And so the idea of a peer response group is for students to get the experience as readers of writing in progress, but for writers to hear what their audience is seeing in their text as they're developing that text over time. I often say to doctoral TAs and less experienced teachers of writing that the primary purpose of peer response activities is not necessarily to produce a better finished essay for the writer, but to help the readers in that group learn more about what it means to engage in the development of writing an effective text. So I don't expect that just because I have kids in peer review or peer response groups that their essays are necessarily going to be better, because by definition they're novices. I would be, if I were only interested in that, I would be the best reader in the class because I have the most experience as a writer. But if I did that, they don't get that experience of responding to one another's text, not for the sake of saying this is good or bad, but for the sake of saying, here's what I'm hearing in your text. Here's how the rhetorical situation sounds to me. So I want them to learn how to read writing in progress and how to think like writers, rather than how to help one another create a better text. I think that's a really important distinction, and I think it's one that is not often made. And so when kids come out of high school into the college classroom, they don't have any experience talking about writing in progress. They're afraid to talk about one another's essays because they think that their job is to say this is good or this is not good, and that's not what a peer response activity is in my mind. The primary tool that I use is the discussion board on Blackboard. You could use any sort of discussion board. There are many of them that are out there on the web. My university happens to use Blackboard, and so what I do is to set up a separate open discussion forum for each of the writing groups in the class. And that discussion forum becomes a place for students to post all of their drafts, so their group members can have access to those. They comment on one another's drafts, so not only do they talk in class together, but they write comments to one another, which I have access to because I have access to all the discussion boards. And therefore I can capture some of the discussion that I couldn't capture in class because I can't be at 5 or 6 writing groups simultaneously. So it's a good time, I think, when it comes to teaching writing, because we've got these tools that allow us to do things we've been doing for many, many years, but which in some ways might be invisible to us. So back to the peer review thing, Blackboard helps me capture parts of that I wouldn't see as an instructor. And it also creates a record for the students so that if they talked about something in September, they have access to that entire thread in December or in November. You can't assume that students know how to talk about writing in progress. And so if you just put kids into groups and give them a task that is either unfamiliar to them or that they're unprepared for, the groups are going to fail. The kids are going to founder around, not really know what to do. And I often hear teachers I work with in high schools and middle schools, as well as other college teachers, saying, I don't use peer review because the students can't do it. Well, they can't do it because they haven't been shown how to do it. They don't know what it means. And so you have to model for them, what does it look like to talk about writing in progress without evaluating it, without editing it. So one of the things that I do is I do a whole class workshop very early in the semester in which I conduct the workshop and help them see what does it look like to talk about a student's writing in progress. It seems to me that if you first of all help students understand that distinction, then secondly model it for them, and then thirdly give them the opportunity to practice it, they'll use those peer response activities in ways that will make them better writers eventually. Their text might not show it in the beginning, but they'll internalize some of that because they will now have the experience over time of responding to a text without having to worry about whether it's correct or incorrect.